Stories. Stories have their own quiet revolutions. Some are whispered in small rooms, some are sculpted in solitude, and a few are nurtured into existence by those who believe that words, even when silenced, find their way back to light. My guest today is one such believer, writer, editor, and literary catalyst Sucharita Dutta-Asane. Her stories, from cast out to these tongues that grow roots, travel through the unmapped territories of memory, exile, and belonging. As an editor at Red River Stories, she's also helping a new generation of writers find their voice and their courage. So, in today's episode, we talk about sculpting stories rather than butchering them, about the delicate art of editing, and about the quiet wars that shape her fiction. In today's episode, we talk about sculpting stories rather than butchering them, about the delicate art of editing, and about the quiet wars that shape her fiction. I'm Sunil Bhandari, and welcome to Red River Sessions presented by Uncut Poetry. And I am in conversation with Sucharita Dutta-Asane. In Red River Sessions, we talk to published writers and poets about their work, their craft, and what. In Red River Sessions, we talk to published writers and poets about their work, their craft, and what haunts them. It is brought to you by Red River, which is the premier independent publisher of poetry books and Uncut Poetry, a much loved poetry podcast. Now let's delve into the inner lives of those who create meaning from language. Okay, that's super. Sucharita, so good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Of course. So where are you
Yeah.
just now?
Pune.
Okay, that's your home city.
That is my adopted city.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Adopted for a while
And
now.
it's yeah, I've been here now. So it is my city now.
Wonderful.
And it's a very rainy and gloomy city today.
That's good, I presume. The weather must have been brilliant for the last few days, I believe, isn't it?
No, it's been raining on and off, on and off.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's been gloomy.
Wonderful. So let's delve straight away into the question which has been playing on my mind, because I read this and I think you mentioned it also when we had a conversation. You've been called many things. I mean, writer, editor, mentor, quiet disruptor. But
Ah,
the I read that somewhere.
well, oh, wonderful.
Uh, but the image that always comes back to me in your description of yourself was as a sculptor, not a butcher. And that's such a striking metaphor. So how do you see yourself sculpting, a story into being, chiseling away? I can visualize that chiseling away to find the form. Yet, like a sculptor never really cuts its soul. So, tell me about that entire metaphor put into actuality by you.
Yeah, I remember, Sunil, that when I first began to write and to edit, and all writers are editors too, right? You have to edit your work, and this idea of murdering your darlings came up. I mean, it's such a it's a cliched term, right? So when you think of murdering your darlings, you immediately think of something very negative, right? So the image of butchering came to my mind, of course, but there's such a lot of negative connotation around the word butcher, which is unfortunate because what a butcher does is also use carve up pieces, right, according to what is required using the different
Mm,
tools, right? So it is not butchering in the way in which we uh, tend to talk about it as something very negative.
mm,
But uh, but then I realized that when you are writing and then when you are returning to what you have written and you are editing it, you are trying to get to the essence of what you are writing. Yeah. And that's what a sculptor also does. The sculptor has the material. Yeah. And with that material, you're going to mold something and you're going to use your chisel and your hammer or a mallet or whatever it is. So
right.
when you're doing that, when you are you come to your material with some kind of an idea in your head, right? But you don't really know what shape it is eventually going to take.
Mm,
The expression that you may have thought of for your piece of sculpture or your
mm,
story is in your head, but when you begin to work with your material, that expression will undergo change.
mm,
It will
mm,
take that expression will um, I think mold itself under your hands in a way that the idea requires.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So with this available material, the sculptor is going to hammer and chisel and polish and get to the essence of that idea that the sculptor started out to create.
right.
So
Right.
when you are chiseling away and those pieces are falling away, you're making grooves and cuts and shaping. What you're doing is you're cutting away to arrive at the essence, not to damage that essence. You're
Mm,
refining it, you're giving shape to it. And
mm.
in the process, you're discovering the creation. I think the writer does the same after the first and second drafts.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you sculpt, you begin with a raw block of an idea, a character, a smell of rain, or do your stories kind of arrive almost whole, instinctively formed? How does it happen?
No, no, I don't think a story arrives completely. It's usually an idea. So, for example, when I was writing Cast Out, I started with the idea of a temple that I used to see, up on the hill. So I used to travel between Pune and Jamshedpur 4 times a year. And often I would see this temple up on a hill from the train compartment. And I would see people, either standing up or going closer to the windows or going towards the door, and they
Right.
would fold their hands,
Hmm.
you know, towards that temple.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or I've also seen people throwing coins into the river, or just throwing the coins towards the temple, knowing that the coin is not going to reach the temple. So I stayed with this image for a long time. So when I began writing Cast Out, I was writing about a temple. I
Okay.
wasn't writing about Tara, the protagonist of
Hmm.
Cast Out.
Hmm.
So it's that which was the trigger. And as I continued to write, Tara entered the story on her own.
Ah.
And when Tara entered the story, I did not know who is Tara.
Wow.
So I went with her as she went to the temple. And when she stood at that temple on a day when she's menstruating, then I entered Tara's body. So to say that what is happening. And in a village, my in-laws used to stay in a village till a few years ago. Now everybody has given up the village and shifted to the city. But a village is a very intimate space, and everybody seemed to know everything about everybody.
Hmm.
Who is having her periods. I mean, that was something. So, and that is true. So many people asked me, how would they
Amazing.
know?
Yeah.
I said, you don't know how much in sync people are with one another in the rural areas or even the smaller towns and all. We are much more in sync there than we are in the cities.
Hmm.
So here is this woman, and I'm now inhabiting her space, her mind and her body, and I'm standing in front of this temple.
Hmm.
And what are the people saying behind me about me? When I began to think of that, and when I began to think of what Tara, the various options Tara has, the story actually began to take shape.
Wow.
Or Fire, for that for that matter. Fire was, of course, inspired by
Hmm. Hmm.
Nandigram in 2007, right?
Hmm.
So when I wrote Fire, I thought I had done a terrific job. I have written a fantastic story because I was all angry about what was happening. And this one line from a newspaper report, and at that time there was no social media, right?
True, true, true.
So we had only the newspaper to rely on. And I remember reading this line in a newspaper where these goons who wanted entry into the village, they said, keep your doors open at night. And that one sentence in Bengali, it stayed with me, and
Wow.
it began to haunt me. And
Hmm.
at that time, I didn't know what the story would be like. But I started writing. And after I wrote and I showed it to a couple of friends, that's the first complete story I ever wrote.
Okay.
And Nandigram just brought it on. So when I showed it to my friends, they said that there's too much anger. This is not working. That is not working.
Hmm.
So what had happened was that I had just let loose all the anger I felt,
Hmm.
all the frustration. So the story hadn't told itself. I hadn't sculpted the story as yet. I had just, taken up all the material and just kept it as a lump over there. It was just a lump.
Hmm. Hmm.
It wasn't the sculpted, I hadn't brought the chisel to it.
Okay. Okay.
And when I brought the chisel to it, over 7 years, I kept bringing the chisel to it till I finally had the story. So I didn't know when I started out.
So, but this is so interesting. A, a very different view of writing is that you know the ending before you start, which is the way a lot of authors do write. But
Yeah.
as I see your way of doing it is to actually follow the character or a theme and see what comes out of it, which is so interesting because you are discovering just the way a reader would, I presume. And that is incredible. So, is that something which is the way you follow by getting a sliver of theme or a sliver of a character and then following them? Is that how all the stories work, or that is one of the ways that the way you followed Tara is one of the ways you do it?
Most often, that is the way I do it.
Wow.
Sometimes I know how a story will begin and end, and I don't know the middle at all. But usually, that is the way. It's just some kind of a trigger. It may be just a tree that I've seen somewhere.
Hmm.
It may be so setting. Setting plays a very important role for me, and often places trigger stories in me rather
Hmm.
than people.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
This is almost a poet's sensibility because that's the way poets always react. They see something and something triggers, and the poem comes out, and this seems for you it's a story which comes out, which is so fascinating. Yeah.
Which is very nice to know, because yeah, of course, poets respond that way, and
Hmm.
very often I've been told my stories could be poetry too.
Of course.
So so I feel very happy about that. Best of both worlds.
So you've worked across short stories, novellas, even
But no,
essays. Ah,
Sunil, can I come back to that
please.
sculpting thing? I did not.
Yes, yes, yes.
I think what I meant when I said sculpting is, um, after I write, I listen to the story. I actually read it aloud. I record it. Then I listen
Wow.
to it. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, why I moved from the image of the butcher to the sculptor is when a sculptor is sculpting, I think it is not just a visual medium, right? The sculptor listens. You know, Where is the material soft? If it's marble, where is the marble soft or hard? Or where will you get those, the grooves? Or so it's a very tactile, very oral kind of an exercise also, sculpting. And I
Mm.
think writing is similar. So when you go back to your writing, when you're going to revise it, edit it, you're going to listen to it. It's a very oral um, exercise in itself. You listen to the resonances. You're a poet, you know this very well.
Mm.
No, words speak. You listen to them. They are not
Very
just
true.
visually crawling on the page. So,
Mm. Mm.
uh,
How wonderful. In fact, but taking off from what you said, how should I put it? Your stories often read like meditations, almost meditations on power and gender
thank
and
you.
belonging. I mean, it's so beautiful. Uh, I mean, let's take Cast Out, where a priest's wife, which we were just talking about, enters the temple during her menstrual cycle. So, defying taboo, inviting exile. So, what made you choose this act of quiet defiance as your story's course? I mean, was it something which was boiling in you and it just came out, or do you think you wanted your story to reflect some kind of a defiance, which then we see getting into your other stories also?
Yeah, yeah. That may be no. If you're asking about cast out, as I
Mm-hmm.
told you, I did not set out with any idea. It was just this image of the temple and people paying obeisance to it. It's a kind of a blind faith.
Mm-hmm.
That the thought that maybe the temple does not even have a deity may
Mm.
not even cross anybody's mind.
Yeah.
So that stayed with me. The idea of worship without really knowing what is it you're worshiping, without even making out. At times, when the train would cross that particular area at night, or let's say it's getting dark,
Mm.
you only make out that there's a temple, there's an outline, and even then you stand up and you join your hands.
Yeah.
So I kept asking myself, what is this faith like, and do they ever conceive of an alternative, of that maybe there's no deity there, maybe nobody goes there, maybe it is just the facade.
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm.
as Tara entered the scene, as Tara entered the story, this kept coming back to me.
Mm.
That
Mm.
what if, so Tara's story was a parallel story, and the other story I was writing within it was of this blind faith. Did these people even know whether there was something in the temple or not?
Right. Right.
And somehow the two came together. So when Tara stood at that temple gate, or when Tara entered the sanctum sanctorum, she was exercising her right to do something for herself, right? She has to protect herself. So all this
Right.
idea of who tells you that menstrual blood is impure, who decided that at
Mm.
which point in time?
Mm.
And then
Mm.
nobody questions, because it creates a kind of a social sanction, and therefore some kind of a sense of security, and you want to
Mm.
hold on to that, right?
Mm.
So
Very true.
you're not questioning, you're not asking anything. A line drawn across everything, and then so that temple door is the line. the
Mm.
the threshold of the sanctum sanctorum, that is a line. Who can or who cannot cross it is, it is always somebody else's decision, and here Tara takes the decision and enters.
Yeah.
Right? So she is thinking, and that is exactly what society does not want you to do. That you do not think. We have said what has to be done. You simply toe the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have these collective problems. When I shared this story in a workshop, it was still in its nascent stage, not a complete story.
Mm.
You should have seen there were men and women in that workshop, and the way the women responded to the story was so different from the way the men responded.
How interesting.
You know, the men were, yeah, yeah, so what, why? And the women just knew what it is Tara was going through. right? And so many of them told me Tara has found a way to deal with it, and we still don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
this,
she's such a character, silent yet, seismic almost, It's wonderfully done. Really wonderfully done.
thank you.
Yeah. Then there's the other short story which I loved, True, False, Right, if you remember. The woman with the Alzheimer's and
Yeah,
a parrot who knows only those three words. I mean, what was the emotional spark behind that story? You remember?
yeah, I very, very well actually. Because there's something very personal also over there. My mother suffered from dementia and Alzheimer's for 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah, before she passed on. And I've seen, I've seen the way her memory and her forgetfulness worked during those years. So initially, she would forget things, she would forget herself, but eventually she forgot us. She
Ah,
remembered my father because he was her primary caregiver.
okay.
So she remembered him at all times, and she would, scold him, argue with him. But I used to go so many times in a year with my babies at that time. She wouldn't remember. She wouldn't remember any of us. But when she met my husband, and she met him once a year, he used to go once a year, and I would go multiple times. When she met my husband, without remembering his name or who he is, she would switch to speaking in English.
My God.
Now, you tell me, no medical science explains this to me.
This is
My
amazing.
daughter, yeah, my daughter is pursuing neuroscience, and she wants to work in the field of Alzheimer's. So I keep telling her, if you ever find the answer to this, I would love to know. And she forgot us completely. So, I kept thinking after I saw my mother deal with this, I kept thinking that memory, remembering, forgetting, among these, there are all these gaps, right? What you are remembering is not necessarily what has happened, that we all know.
Hmm.
So you're trying to always piece together, and it often reminds me of listening to orally told stories. So when you're listening to oral narration, it is quite possible that at times you just drift away mentally, and at some point you're going to re-enter the story. And when
Right.
you re-enter the story, because it is oral, you don't know, you cannot go back and retrace.
Yeah.
So what do? You try to remember what was the last point you heard and where you have taken up again, and the gap in between you're going to fill with your own way of joining the dots.
Right. Right.
So remembering, memory, forgetting, all of these is somewhat like this, entering, phasing out, remembering, and
Hmm.
joining the dots. So
Hmm.
this,
Hmm.
the absence, these gaps have always intrigued me.
Hmm. And the
Because,
and the parrot becomes a symbol, I guess, of memory, looping, of language fading. This
yeah.
entire spectrum of things.
But the parrot
Fascinating.
becomes much more actually,
Hmm.
Sunil,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
the parrot, usually we say parrots will, repeat whatever is taught to them. And this parrot hovers around her all the time. So it should have picked up other words too.
Hmm.
But it has picked up only three words.
Hmm.
So that makes it a little uncanny, right? And
Right.
uncanny draws then attention to the complexity of what is true and what is false and what is right.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
So,
In in these tongues that grows roots, you frame the book with war one and war two.
yeah.
So were you suggesting that conflict, both external and internal, never really ends? Is that why you deliberately did that?
See, this collection coming in 2024 is a little different from the earlier collection.
Hmm.
I think 2018 we were still innocent in many ways. still with hope in many ways about many things.
Mm,
By the time we came to 2024, that was beginning to shatter in many ways.
mm,
And I thought everyone around me, I think, is at war with something or the other. Hmm. Families are at war within the families over ideology. Friends are struggling with one another. And internally, I think every one of us is struggling with some kind of conflict or the other. Now, those conflicts could be outside or inside, it doesn't matter. We
mm,
are at war, I think. However grim or however bleak that sounds, we are at war and we have to get through this war to reach the other side.
mm, mm,
So, war one is war and how it affects this narrator. But war two is also war in the sense you have both, this eavesdropping and the toxicity of it, eavesdropping,
mm.
sorry, eve teasing and the
Eve teasing.
toxicity of it.
Mm,
And you also have lynching. Yeah. And then you have this character who finally goes through this challenge of coming to terms with what has happened and then actually deciding to act. So
right.
I was very sure of this structure when I finally put together the stories that War One gives you a kind of hopeless scenario,
Mm,
but
mm.
War Two tells you that there is always the option to act, there always the option to take a stance.
Sure, sure,
So I
sure.
did not want to end with hopelessness as
Fair
such.
enough. Yeah, it comes out very well. And the title itself, "Tongues That Never Grow Roots," it's kind of haunting and beautiful, you know. So,
Thank you.
yeah, of course, and does it kind of speak to how language and loss entwine in your work? Does it indicate that in many ways? What could be the genesis of that title?
Uh, that story was written in a hurry, so I didn't really think much. I think I was feeling more than I was thinking when I was writing the
Okay.
story. you know so I had been to a place called Fireflies in Bangalore.
Okay.
They have it's a community center, and you have lots of outreach programs happening there and stuff like that. And I had just contributed around that time to a dossier called the Pluralities Dossier,
Mm-hmm.
in which I had this story Let Go.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a meeting over there. And when I went there, this is an amazing place, and I hope you get to go there sometime. Uh,
Okay.
it, it's full of trees. It's full of trees, banyans, and the roots hanging. And there's a pond, there's a lake, there's a temple to Sita over there, which
Wow.
the tribal people over there, they come and take care of it.
Huh.
It's an amazing place. But the first time, being a city dweller, the first time when I went there and it was evening, I was a little overwhelmed by the treeness of the place.
Okay.
you know, the woody smell, the dampness around.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was quite overwhelming for a city dweller like me. But when I started writing the story, I realized that, something of mine I have left behind there, and something of that place I've carried back with me.
How lovely.
Those trees were there with me, I could
Hmm.
literally smell them, I could see them. They were around me. I felt surrounded by them at all times. And
Uh,
even now, when I'm talking with you about this, I can still sense that. It's when I started writing this story, Manipur, the Manipur was burning at that time,
okay.
and these women, they were paraded naked.
I remember that time, yes.
You remember that incident? So
Hmm.
all of that was, playing havoc in my mind, and I
Hmm.
think all of it came together: the trees, the women, and this sense of what is power and who
Hmm.
controls whom with that power.
Hmm.
So nothing can really exemplify that more than a mother trying to wield power over her children.
Right.
So I tried to write it in that in three sections, which were interconnected because of the character.
Hmm.
But basically, what I think I was trying to do was that trees, and because I'm talking of these trees, trees have an underground life that we never think of, right?
Hmm.
You have
Hmm.
roots reaching out to one another, something I tried to get into the story. I don't know how successful that was.
Beautifully done.
Yeah, thank you so much. So when roots are reaching out to one another, we all know about the mother tree nurturing other trees around it. You know, all of these we hear of. I thought language and stories work similarly.
Hmm.
Stories, they spread their roots to other people. So if I'm writing, after I finish writing a new read, the story is reaching out, spreading its roots to
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
and you are creating another story out of that same story,
Absolutely.
right? So your reading of it is giving it different stems and branches and more
Hmm.
roots.
Hmm.
And language, similarly, language, I think when you use language, it puts down its roots,
It-
right? Which is why language is, which is why I
Hmm.
think people use language in so many negative ways also.
Yeah.
They know
Yeah.
the power
Yeah.
of language.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought of these roots, the banyan tree roots, they were dangling and spreading.
Hmm.
And I kept thinking of the underground terrain, what is it under the ground with so many
Right.
trees around?
Right.
And then I saw all of us, standing in a circle, holding hands, telling our stories. So all of that came together when I was writing this.
Would it be true? It's just a feeling I have that your stories are less about resolution and more about resonance. What's left unsaid. So do you think that would be a true comment? You don't try to come to conclusions and things which end in a way which sounds like an end. It's more to do with the a surreal undertone, and uh, the sounds which come out of a story is more important than the resolution. Would that be right? Is that something that you do consciously?
Partially, I think. I don't know if I do it consciously because from the first story I've written till to date,
Hmm.
whatever I've written, it carries that. So maybe it's just something within me that always comes to the fore.
Hmm.
I don't think it's some kind of a genius I'm dipping into or anything of that sort. It's just something the way I feel, maybe.
Hmm.
Or but it's very interesting, what you just said
Hmm.
because I have a story called Unharnessed in the earlier
Okay.
collection.
Hmm.
And somebody asked me, why did you use unharnessed? And I put un in brackets and then harnessed. So I thought of that now when you asked me, because I think a lot of my writing tries to explore this space of the prefix,
Hmm. Hmm.
which means the absence maybe or the not of something. So unseen, unheard,
Right.
unharnessed,
Right.
unspoken,
Hmm.
and I think that is what I try to, perhaps that is what I try to do, which I don't know whether it answers your question, but I don't think there are, any quick fixes, any resolutions, any one resolution for everybody.
And that's what life is, which
Yeah,
is which is so
yeah,
true. Sometimes unraveling a situation or a person uh, is the way towards a solution, because you are naming it, you are putting it in front of yourself and the audience, and for them to, as you rightly said, language, the words which you use are the ones which give identity to what you are seeing in front of you. And that also sometimes is the start of a revolution. Sometimes when you don't name something, you don't go after it. But when you start naming it, that's when it enters the consciousness and you realize ki, yes, something needs to be done. So you do
yeah.
it beautifully. You do it so
Thank
beautifully.
you, thank you.
Yeah. So, shall we shift gears? I mean, you edit, and you've been both the writer and the editor. So, how does one role sharpen the other? I'd be very fascinated to know that.
I don't know whether it sharpens as such, but it it does hamper my writing these days. That I can tell you for sure.
Oh my God, yeah, we have those stubborn 24 hours and nothing more than that.
Yeah, more than that, in the sense that it hampers my writing because now I have begun to edit myself from the first sentence I put down.
Oh heavens.
Yeah,
That's not a
now
good
you
thing.
know. Now you know. So,
Oh
so
Lord.
I'm so now tuned into excess to what that from the very first sentence I write, I know, oh, okay, no, this word is not needed. Drop it. So,
Oh my God, do you go beyond the first page at all?
yeah. So then I have brought, and earlier it used to be, before I took up editing to this extent, it used to be a very instinctive way of writing, you know.
Hmm.
You have a thought, you sit down, you write, and then you write and I write like a vagabond, I think. I write as
I
and when
love
and
that.
where, you know. So there's no routine or discipline to my kind of writing.
Right.
But I used to write uh, the first, second drafts would go very easily. Now that is not happening. And also because, you know, when you write your first book, there is an innocence to you as a writer.
So right.
You're not asking yourself any questions. You've
Hmm.
just written. And that's how I used to always write. Just write because I
Hmm.
love writing. That's it.
Correct, correct.
And after the first book came out during the book launch, I was asked so many questions and I had never thought of questions. I never thought of asking myself, why am I writing this? Or why is my character doing that?
It
Or
just
why is such a.
came.
It just
Ah,
came. So I
ah.
tried, you know, it was this room full of 40 people in that room. And they were asking me this. And I said, but it just happened. And it was true, but nobody was willing. They thought I have no answers and I'm not a nice writer in the sense I don't know how to analyze my writing. I'm sure
I
they would
guess they
have thought
wanted
that.
something more profound from you.
I said, there is nothing more profound than the fact that it is a very meditative exercise for me. Writing is meditation.
Hmm, correct.
So when you're meditating, you're not, are you consciously then thinking, I'll do this and I'll do that and then this? I don't think so.
Hmm. You're so right. You're so right. So, when you receive a manuscript, what's the first thing you look for? Voice, uh, rhythm, courage, honesty. I mean, what are the first thoughts when you start reading?
I think all of these come up, you know. You notice all of these things, the
Hmm.
presence or the absence. But honestly, what I really, really look for is what is the potential that the story has.
Okay.
I don't care if it's incomplete,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But I want to I if a short story. So, for example, a short story came to me, you know, initial days of Red River,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized that that short story could be developed into a full length novella.
Okay.
There was so much potential in that story, and the
Wow.
story was so beautifully written, but it was not enough, you know. That I
Ah.
knew that the story is dying to tell itself much more than what is there now.
What a reverse reaction to a story. Usually, you want to cut it down. Here, you wanted it to be expanded into something more.
Yeah. So actually, during one of the book launches over here, for one of the Red River books, somebody asked that of the writer. And are you
Hmm.
actually telling me that your editor told you to elaborate?
I love this.
So this story, the both of these stories came to me almost like short stories, you know. And so what I look for is what is the story's potential and does the writer have the potential to develop it?
Hmm. Hmm.
If there is a match, I really do not give a fig for it, whether the story is complete or who is it coming from or what kind of a story. We are very democratic about that.
Fair enough. Do you face resistance when you give suggestions sometimes? Because, as you said right in the beginning, those words are our darlings. A writer sometimes, loves a sentence and the editor says, knock it off. So how do you handle that entire piece?
It does get very difficult at times. Sometimes, but I don't know. I've noticed that there's a certain kind of writer who will resist.
Mm-hmm.
The kind who thinks that my word is sacrosanct.
Ah,
And you know
right.
it. You know immediately that that's going to
Mm,
happen. But then,
right.
yeah, you find a way to getting around that feeling in the writer
Okay.
without making the writer feel small about it,
Which is so important, of course.
which is
Yeah.
very important. Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
So, and that has happened. And, it is heartening to see the same writers come back and say, thank you so much, this has helped, or,
Yeah.
discussing it. It's not the
Sure.
thanks that is important, it's that they are willing to open up their work and their hearts and minds to the suggestions.
You're so right. You're so right.
Because I keep telling my writers, and I just do not bother how big or small you are, whether you are a newbie or you're a very well established writer.
Hmm.
I put it down that my first priority as an editor is your book and not you.
Well said. Yeah. And
So
it's
I
such
will
a
do everything.
privilege. Yeah. It's such a privilege to have someone look at it and spend time on it and actually delve deep into it and give you comments about what they think. It's not a small thing. Uh, to me, to have someone look at it and to have the sensitivity and the sensibility to say something about it is
Yeah,
fascinating. It's so beautiful.
yeah. And
Yeah.
every writer needs editor to do that. Every writer,
I
big or
think
small.
in acknowledgements, every writer, big, small, famous, unfamous, has always thanked the editors.
Editor, yeah.
Yeah.
I had this very interesting experience. I was doing a book for Hatchet for Farooq Dhondi's book.
Okay.
So, and I wasn't with Red River, I used to just freelance at that time.
Huh.
And I remember the publisher telling me that, see, we are sending you Farooq's book, but he's very touchy. So try to go slow on the edits, and don't get into arguments. So I was scared, and
Yeah.
I was still fresh. I was still fresh to the field. And so I read his book. I sent the edits, and it was so good, to hear back from him. He was so polite and so rooted and so humble about it.
Wow.
So wherever, he disagreed with me, he put in a proper detailed note why he disagreed. And then
Uh-huh.
he said, I'll leave it to your discretion.
Hmm.
And where he agreed, he, acknowledged it. He put down his own notes. So it was such a beautiful experience that
Wow.
I was scared because of the things I was told.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
him. But there are very few, new writers who understand that.
Hmm. I understand. So,
So,
tell me, in terms of the entirety of the editing process, of course, one is the small things, you know, but the big things like, say, you want a character removed or you want incidents to uh, go in places where they will create more impact, which would involve far more writing and reframing for the author. So
mm,
do you and have you ever done that, which means rewriting the book itself in a sense? So is that something which needs to be done sometimes?
plenty of times.
Ah. Oh my
I've
God.
done that to my writers and I've done that to myself. So
Oh, okay.
no
Okay.
qualms there, yeah.
Okay.
You know,
And
I I I
no, no,
edited
carry
a
on, please.
I edited a book that was about, let's say, 90,000 words. Okay.
Oh my God.
It
Okay.
was written in the third person, not for Red River earlier. It was
Uh-huh.
written in the third person, past tense.
Uh-huh.
And I told this girl, and I knew that she was capable of it, a very good writer.
Mm.
I said, do one thing, forget the past tense, write the entire book in the present tense,
Oh my God.
and change the voice.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my, she's going to kill me for this. But she did it.
Oh, she did that?
She did it. And it
Wow.
read very well, it really read well.
Wow. How
And
beautiful.
she could carry it off, she could
Mm.
work with those the suggestions and the changes, and
Mm.
brilliant job of it.
So now to Red River Story, I've been seeing it for a while, and it's become more than just a small press. It's almost a movement. So do tell me about the
Thank you so
genesis.
much
Of
for
course
that.
it has. Of course it has. I mean, the title, the way they are put together, and it's so beautifully done. You could see the effort, the aesthetics, of course, but the heart which goes into it, and it's so beautifully done. So, how did it all begin? Do give us an insight into that.
So Red River, was always has been around for so many years now, seven,
Of
eight
course.
years now, right?
Yeah.
And Dibya has been doing brilliantly with his poetry books. I think Dibya is a movement in poetry in India today.
Yeah.
He has, I think, has published almost all the poets possible.
Very true.
Yeah, and he puts his heart and soul into it, no doubt about that, without thinking of profits. So we
Hmm.
work on a not for profit basis, right?
Okay.
And and he has been doing it without earning anything out of it, therefore.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then about 3 years ago, he said, "Will you edit the imprint? Then we can start a prose imprint,
Okay.
not fiction, but prose imprint, which covers both." Then
Hmm.
so, I mean, it was right up my alley and right up something that I would want to do. And then he said, Sucharita, I can't give you money. I said, yes, I'm aware of that.
Jesus Christ.
I said, I'm aware of that. And are you aware of the extent of work involved? He said, yes.
Yeah.
So if
Oh
we are
my
on the
God.
same page about the two, let's start. I mean, it
Okay.
needed two madcaps, I think. Otherwise, this wouldn't have been possible.
I know. You make it sound so simple. I guess intrinsically it is.
No, I don't know about simple or not. We work pro bono, that everybody knows now, both of
Okay.
us.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, we decided that this is how it would be till, we
Hmm.
are able to get somebody to help us out or whatever. I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
The small presses, the way they work abroad is so much better than the way we work over here.
Hmm. Do
So,
tell.
yeah, I'll come. Let me just finish with the first part of the
Hmm.
question about how
Hmm.
this came about. So that's it. I think Dibya had already, from Red River, he had published a book called Hunger by Dr. Dhrubajyoti Bora.
Right.
That's translated from Assamese to English.
Hmm.
And when we started, we did not have any manuscript with us.
My God.
We thought we'll reach out to friends and we'll
Ah,
ask those who are willing to come to us.
right.
And it so happened that I was talking to Amer Hussain, and he asked me, "So, Sucharita, what are you doing these days?" And I said, Amer, I've just started this.
Ah,
And we started chatting, and it just transpired that Amer had a manuscript ready
wow.
of short fiction.
Ah,
And I got the shivers, I got the jitters, because the first book from Red River Story has to be Amer Hussain's. That was too much to handle.
amazing. Amazing.
Then he said, "Will you be editing?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, so then do my book." I said, "Mike, I mean, it just overwhelmed us. I called up Dibya. Dibya said, "Are you
Oh,
sure?" I said, "Yes." He said
oh,
this.
how
And
lovely.
then we went back to him. He said, "Please go and tell him we cannot give him any advance or anything. If the book sells, we'll give him royalty for sure."
Correct.
So I went back to Amir. I said, "Amir, this is it." He said, "I'm not doing this for money." And Amir has worked a lot with small publishers. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
he's consistently published with small publishers.
How beautiful is that? Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, "As long as you create a beautiful book, I'm not doing
Mhm.
this for money."
Okay.
So we said, okay, and we took it on. And that was our launch. We launched Red River with the Red River Story with Amir's book. I mean, we could not have asked for a better book to start
Beautiful.
with.
Beautiful.
Such a
Beautiful.
terrific writer.
Yeah. So, so
So
good.
that's how it started. And then we reached out to a couple of friends,
Hmm.
and both of them came with this short story to me,
Hmm.
which grew into the novellas I was telling
Novellas.
you about. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And then I think it has been completely word of mouth.
Okay. And how does it work now? You are overwhelmed with manuscripts?
we are.
You are.
We are overwhelmed in terms of, human resources because it's uh, Dibya manages poetry, all of it. He has
Mm-hmm.
some editors to help him.
True.
I manage the prose, all of it, with some
Mm.
editors to help as and when they are
Mm.
able to.
Okay. Okay.
And as and when we can muster some money to pay them, because Dibya and I can do this pro bono. We do not want
Mm.
them also to do it pro bono,
True. True. True.
which is not fair at all. So when we are able to, and I think sometimes there also it happens that they try to help out. So
Okay.
the word has spread, and there are a lot of short fiction manuscripts, novella manuscripts coming to us, which tells us that there is there could be space for these genres, but the
Mm.
mainstream is not looking at it.
Interesting. Usually it works that if it sells, the mainstream will look at it. So is that a dynamic, or is it that because they're not looking at it, because they have the muscle, that things are not as good as it could be? What do you think works first?
I have no idea, Sunil. There is no perfect answer I can give you for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
To my understanding, if you have big publishers around who can actually guide the market, who can
Hmm.
actually guide reader requirements,
Hmm.
then they should be able to do it. But we get to know whether in India or in the West, we keep hearing that short stories do not sell.
Hmm. Hmm. It's
And
a
yet
refrain.
when a booker goes to a short story writer, that particular collection sells, right?
Yeah. So true. So
Yeah,
true.
so what is it? Which means that if the big publishers decide and if their marketing departments decide,
Hmm.
perhaps
Hmm.
space can be made for short story
Hmm.
collections.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right.
So if you tell me that no, people don't buy, I can imagine, okay, some readers may say that why maybe an anthology will sell better than a collection because you
Hmm.
have variety there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, but then why won't a novella sell?
You're so right. So
And
now that you get so many books, what's your guiding editorial philosophy? I mean, to nurture the overlook, the raw, the honest. Is that a thread which has come in now when you're looking at manuscript?
I think so. There is some kind of a publishing activism which has come in without really thinking about it.
Hmm.
But we are not trying to follow market trends. We are not trying to compete with anybody. So we're not going for a particular kind of book in the sense, oh, yeah, this book is going to sell, so let's do this.
Hmm. Understood.
Or this genre will. So we are taking up what really appeals to us. And usually Divya and I are on the same page with that.
Wonderful.
So if
Wonderful.
I tell him, he'll send something to me, he'll ask me, do you think this works for us? And if I say no, then it's no for him. And if I
Hmm.
say yes, it's yes for him.
Okay.
Sometimes we may disagree and come around and arrive on the same page. But usually we are in agreement. So there is some kind of a telepathic communication about what we want to do, perhaps. And he's been in Delhi. We haven't met. He was my junior in the university department.
Oh, I did not know that. How
Yeah.
lovely.
But at that time, we didn't know each other except in
Uh-huh.
the passing, like, okay, yeah,
Okay.
I know she was here, met maybe a once or twice.
Right.
And then he went off to Delhi. We've not
Hmm.
met.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. And we have this understanding without discussing anything about it.
Okay. Okay. Fascinating, really. And Dibya has this quality of somehow, even when I reached out to him for this podcast, it just flowed. The gentleness and the humanness of the person is such that it's
Yeah,
lovely working
it
with him.
is. Yeah.
He's so upfront. It's a lovely and I've just met him once, just once. I
Mm,
was there for the Delhi Poetry Festival, and we spent a lot of time together. But it's so nice talking to him and being in touch with
yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Is there is there a particular book that nearly, didn't make it, but did, and it kind of rewarded your faith? Is there a story of that kind also in the manuscript which you read? Not necessarily for Red River, but otherwise also.
Yeah, two books actually.
Uh-huh.
When you gave me that question, I thought I had to actually think about it. Are there? I did not want to be caught guessing on camera. There's one book that came to me long ago when I was doing freelancing
Uh-huh.
from Harlequin. You know how Harlequin wrapped up after that, right?
The
And
romance stories, wala?
But they
Ah,
were doing a
okay.
very different kind of book. This
Uh-huh.
book was about, and it was being written by somebody in USA, an
Okay.
Indian writer, but she was a US citizen,
Mm-hmm.
and she was writing about Job Charnock's Calcutta.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
yeah, how it came to be. So she was focusing on Job Charnock and this woman that he had married.
Mm-hmm.
So she was writing about the romance between them,
Okay.
right up to his death, I think.
Oh, okay.
And that I almost said no to it.
You say
I
no
almost said,
also?
I almost said no to it, and I was freelance. I was free to say no.
Of course.
But then I mean, it came back. I was they convinced me. The publisher
Uh-huh.
convinced me,
Uh-huh.
and I finally took it up. I said no because there was a lot of work involved.
Okay. Fair
But
enough.
But the writer, she did all of that, and I think later on she went on to be nominated for some award also for that book.
Oh, how lovely.
I'm sorry, I forget which award that was,
Sure.
but the publisher wrote to me saying that Sucharita, you should be happy that this book is up for an award. So my kids were very young at that time, Sunil.
Uh,
My mother was going through this phase in her Alzheimer's and all of that, so I had to keep
hmm.
shuffling between Jamshedpur and Pune. So I
Okay.
felt very daunted to take up this book and the amount
Hmm.
of work involved.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I'm glad I did. I'm glad. And in the process, I learned about Job Charnock's romantic life too,
Fascinating. I mean, I've
which I
never
did
heard
not
about
know.
it. I didn't know about it.
He's
Must hunt that
supposed to
book
have
out.
he's supposed to have taken this woman away from the pyre, from her sati,
Wow.
and they married.
Look
Eventually,
at
they married.
that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I must check that book out. Wonderful. Coming back to the question of small indie presses, at some point, I think, did we talk about it, or maybe I read about it, that it takes about 50 to 75,000 rupees for a single book, and the sheer economics of it. How does it work? It sounds very thankless, particularly when you don't have money and you're doing it without expectations of that. So how do you sustain it? Because there is hard money going out in any case.
Yeah. Yeah. So, sustain, see, I don't know how long we'll be able to sustain, but right now, how we are sustaining is sometimes the printer will give a discount.
Okay. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay. Got
Yeah,
it.
that's a big thing. The printer will give a
Mm.
discount. Sometimes after the book is published, sometimes writers they realize, how we are doing things, and they come in
Mm.
with a small financial help
Okay.
for
Okay.
for books further down the line,
Sure.
not so
Sure.
much for their books.
Mm.
And
Mm.
sometimes, honestly, sometimes if we are in a tight spot in that particular period,
Mm.
then we do ask our writers to support in some way a small amount that helps, maybe just half of the printing cost or
Makes
half of the
sense.
editorial cost,
Right.
without turning it into self-publishing or vanity publishing, because we are going
Mm.
the whole hog,
Mm.
okay, of the
Mm.
process. The
Mm.
editorial
Mm.
process is as intense as for every book.
Mm.
The production quality that remains as it is, with or without the financial support.
Very true.
But
Very
once in a
true.
while we find ourselves in such a mm, what should I say, sinkhole kind of, that we may
Mm.
just go down. But so at that time we may tell the writers that, okay, a very small amount, but that helps us to tide over that time, to
Sure. Makes
sustain.
sense. Makes sense.
So that's what, and that we've started recently. It wasn't earlier. In
Okay.
Red River Story, we were doing the first few books were all done by Divya on
Okay.
his own.
It's
Don't
unthinkable.
even ask me how he managed, but he did that.
Uh,
But now we need some support, so we ask our writers
okay.
as and when
So,
required.
so are there parallels anywhere in the world? I'm sure there are. Of course, there are indie presses all over. But how do you see grants or um, reader supported models like what you said just now, and collectives, and what is the model for the future, for the small publishers in India? Because all this can go up to this point, and what do you do to make sure that things don't just collapse?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
is there some thought on that, or some parallel example of how it is done in other places? Any idea, any thoughts?
You see, the most recent example, the freshest in my mind, is of course Banu Mushtaq's publisher, right?
S- Sorry,
And
say that
others.
again.
Banu Mushtaq's publisher.
Okay.
She got the Booker this time.
Of course.
Yeah,
Okay. So what's the
yeah.
story
So
behind that?
her publisher is also a small indie press, right? And
Okay.
they have this a very unique subscription based model.
Oh, acha,
Yeah,
that's
so
interesting.
very interesting. Yeah, they have a subscription subscribers base, and they write to them saying that titles are going to be to come out, and
Huh.
they subscribe to those titles, and they get to read them before others do.
Ah,
And
okay.
yeah, and it's there on their site, and they say that we will acknowledge your help in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So this is fantastic that readers are actually buying the books
Hmm.
and helping you sustain other books down the line, right?
How lovely. How
It's such a
lovely.
lovely, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you're the reader, the writer, the publisher, everybody is in like some kind of a community of helping one another.
And has it worked? Any thoughts? Any idea?
It's working very well for them.
How lovely.
It's working quite well.
Okay. And is that
So
the only example we have of such a
you
thing in
have
India?
hand cans. I don't know about the same model
Huh.
elsewhere, but I guess I think hand cans publisher also was a small publisher,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
abroad, small publishers are getting the recognition, but in India, it's a sorry state of affairs.
Hmm.
I'm sorry to say that because,
No, no, I can imagine. And the
yeah,
tragedy is there's so much of CSR money which is there, but
hmm,
somehow it does not find its way into arts enough. And
no, not
definitely
at
not
all.
into the writing part. Maybe
Not at all.
art in terms of sculptures and, doing up the cityscapes,
Performing arts,
etc.
yes.
And
Performing
performing
arts,
arts
perhaps,
also,
yeah.
but not the one which is the most important one. We've grown up reading and love all the books we've absorbed in our entire lives, and still we don't go back and support it all. So that is
Yeah, and
something.
we quote from books all the time,
All
right?
the time, all the
Given the
time.
occasion, you delve into a book for a quote, but you don't want to buy a book, you don't want to support a book.
Mm.
And awards, look at the awards given. How many small publisher books do you see in the awards list? Short list, long list?
Yeah,
I was
you're so
talking to
right.
this other small indie publisher, and they've been around for decades now.
Uh-huh.
Even then, they're struggling. Marketing is a problem.
Hmm.
Distribution is a problem. Having a
Hmm.
reach beyond your state is a problem.
Hmm.
you know
Yeah.
and she says they have done some fantastic covers. She
Okay.
said, Sucharita, we send out the covers for these book cover awards.
Huh.
We get a mail saying, oh, your cover was unique and this and that, but we are never there for the award as such.
So is the big publishers who get it?
It's always the bigger ones, always the known
Oh,
names, the
oh
known names.
God. So it's so disappointing.
Yeah, and the known indie publishers, nobody's the problem I see with the entire publishing industry, including the big, the medium, the small, all of it put together, is that
Hmm.
we are averse to taking risks, to setting out
Yeah.
a journey on our own. We
Hmm.
all want to follow the trends. We want to do what others are doing,
Hmm.
perhaps.
Hmm. Mm.
because that is selling. So translation is very big now. Everybody is doing translation, which is fantastic because translation needed this boost.
Sure.
We weren't really giving it its importance, due
Mm.
importance. So now
Mm.
translation is the fad. People will pour money into translation projects
Mm. Mm.
at the cost of everything else. It, it is this imbalance that you see all the time, whether in what you're trying to do, in what you're pushing, in what you're letting languish. There's
Mm.
a terrible imbalance. And publishers, it's not that publishers are earning a lot of money because there is so much of expense, right?
Mm.
Even for the
You're
big
so right.
publishers,
You're so right.
so
You're
much of
so right.
expense. So it's not like, oh, we are, pricing our books high and you should not, people cannot buy it. There's a
Mm.
reason the books are
Mm.
being priced high also.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So and there again, Red River comes in with no money of its own and tries to keep the price as low as possible so more people buy.
Of
But
course.
people should buy, right?
That's
You
the whole
send out
problem.
books for
Yeah.
reviews, you send out books for reviews, you send out books to read. People will thank you, but then do
Uh,
nothing about it.
what a
So,
tragedy. What a
so
tragedy.
what do you do?
Tell me about literature festivals because there also the emphasis on the big publishers is
Yeah, absolutely.
overwhelming, you
Absolutely.
know. So I see Jaipur Lit Fest now have a section for poetry, for
Bookmark.
example, and
Oh, okay.
bookmark. Yeah. So there is that little change, though it's not very popular. I mean, I've been there once and hardly anybody was there listening in and
Hmm.
participating. But is that also very skewed the world, the whole world of literary festivals, governed
I
largely
think
by big
so.
publishers?
I think so. And this is going to get as controversial as you don't want it to be.
Hmm.
That it is, it is festivals are just for networking and nothing else. Nobody
Yeah.
is really talking about books. Nobody's really reading.
Hmm.
Yeah. So there are two things. There's a festival in Trivandrum where you will see college going students, elderly people, young people coming there with notepads and pencils, and they actually sit and take down notes when the speaker is speaking.
Wow.
This I haven't seen in too many places.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
How?
and
Wow.
and in many of the book fests, you will see people are very geared towards how you're dressed up and how you're looking. Here, it's not that. You're coming in crumpled cotton saris, sitting there taking notes, asking terrific questions. So that's
Wow.
also there. But largely, I think, from observation and what I hear from those who frequent festivals, it
Mm-hmm.
is basically networking.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
so, if you have bookmark where you think that unknown writers will come and pitch their stories, right?
mm-hmm.
So, you should have an audience that wants to go and listen to unknown writers.
Absolutely.
That is our problem as readers, that we are
Yeah.
not even willing to look at the unknown.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
only want the person we know. So, if everybody is reading a writer, everybody
Everybody
else
flocks
also
there.
follows suit. So,
Yeah. That's
it's
us,
all
I guess.
skewed. Yeah, it's
Mm.
all of us are in that.
But people who do have money to put these things together also need to put a bit more energy and imagination in propagating someone who's new. I mean, there are ways to talk about new work which will draw people in. I might not
Yes,
know an author, but if I read a blurb which talks glowingly about the work which is written or an excerpt which is
yes,
propagated, I will be fascinated. I will go.
yes.
So I think the blame really is there with people who do make these decisions. I think,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You spend a year pushing one person's book or two persons' books. So, how many other persons are you putting back for those one or two people, one or two writers?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
You're
know,
so right.
it,
You're
it is
so right.
completely out of balance, right?
Hmm.
So,
So,
I think the marketing departments really have to think that if you are so powerful that you can push a book
hmm,
to that extent,
hmm,
you also then have the power to create the space for other books,
you're so right.
and you're
You're
not
so.
doing that. Why?
That
That why is
thinking is
not.
not there. Yeah,
Yeah,
that thinking is that why. It's just not there. You're so, so right. Isn't there a collective of independent publishers at all? People who can get together, talk about the
Not yet.
problems? Not yet.
Not yet.
So
Not
there's some
yet.
space which
Yes.
demands some action, huh?
Yeah. There are lots of indie publishers who are doing very well, but many of them have shifted focus from. And when we talk of indie publishers, it's a very loose group, right, of big,
Hmm.
medium, and small indie publishers.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So there are the other indie publishers who are doing well, but many of them have shifted away from fiction to non-fiction because non-fiction is doing better.
You mean the academic part of it, which
No,
libraries take on and which can be sent
no,
abroad?
not non-fiction memoirs, you have
Ah, of
travelogues,
course.
that kind
Okay.
of creative
Okay.
non-fiction.
Got it. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So a lot of academic publishing is a different ballgame altogether. But
True.
the non-fiction that has picked up, and there's very good writing coming out in non-fiction. But again, look
Okay.
at the imbalance that you have shifted completely to non-fiction because you are unable to do justice to fiction, which is again a fact.
Ah.
And publishers have to sustain themselves. So obviously, they will go to something that helps them sustain.
Hmm. Got it. So the pendulum
So
keeps
if
shifting.
non-fiction is selling, they will move that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think there is space for essays and, maybe very niche, but for example, I keep searching for good nonfiction which is serious and which delves into uh, things which are not spoken about, the human
Yeah.
condition. And oh well. So we've
You
been
asked me,
speaking.
Sunil,
Ah,
if I
please.
may, you asked me
Yeah.
about books that we may not have taken up, and then we did,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we are
yeah.
happy about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So in Red River too, we did that. And since you mentioned this book, nonfiction,
Uh-huh.
we had a book that came to us from a very well-known academic, and he was writing. It was a collection of aphoristic writings on he calls it the grammar of greed. We have that book,
Wow.
the
Okay.
grammar of greed by Asim Srivastav.
Uh-huh.
Reflections on ecology.
Oh, how nice. I
And
must get that.
please do, you'll love it, I think. There is a,
Mhm.
and when he sent it to us, it was all aphoristic,
Hmm.
and we didn't know. Of course, I knew Asim because I'd edited uh, a book that had an essay by him.
Okay.
And when he sent it to us, I said, how do we handle this? Where is our audience for this kind of a book?
Yeah.
One after the other aphorisms or in that mode, all
Uh,
the entire book. So we told him that, see, we will not be able to take your book to anybody if it is like this. So if you can expand. And
uh.
he talked to his students also, and then he expanded upon those. And it's a beautiful book, which we were almost not taking up because we knew that we wouldn't do justice to it in terms of the readership and the,
Right.
the
Right.
marketability of it.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
finally, we did it, and he got hold of a Gond artist. And you should buy the book not just for Asim's writing, but also for the Gond illustrations that accompany
Oh
it.
my God. Wow. So it becomes
it
intrinsic to the whole book, those
yes,
illustrations.
yeah.
How lovely. How lovely. How lovely. Yeah.
So,
What I love about both of you is the aesthetic element which you put in, the look and feel of it, which
thank
also
you,
makes so
thank
much
you.
of a difference. Just the holding of something which has, you can see the effort which has gone in putting it together so it appeals to the senses of all kinds is also so good. It's nice to see good things. So,
Thank you so much. And I think Dibya puts his heart and soul into the production.
yeah, he really, really does. He
Yeah.
really does. So
And what
across,
we do is
no, please carry on. Yeah.
And what we do is we involve the writer from
Ah,
the word go. It's not
right.
just the writing part of it, but the cover image, the cover of
Ah,
the book, the designing of the book inside, the landing pages for short stories, the sketches that we want for those stories. So
correct, correct,
everything, the
correct.
writer is as much a part of it because the book
Hmm.
is finally the writer's vision, right?
You're so right.
We are there
You're
to
so right.
facilitate and improve upon that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it all comes together beautifully because of
Mm.
this collaboration.
So you are a writer, editor, you're a mother. So across all these roles, what has remained constant? I mean, what keeps you returning to the page?
Hunger.
I love that. Yeah. Hunger for the
Hunger, you know,
new
this
and
whole, yeah. You know, I remember reading Mahashweta. I'm a literature student, right?
sure.
So I would have read uh, lots of fiction.
Hmm.
But around the time when I was 20, I read Mahashweta Devi for the first time.
Okay.
And this is a very tangential response to your question. What brings me
Hmm.
back? I read Mahashweta Devi for the first time, and the first story of hers I read, it was in Bengali, was Draupadi.
Okay.
And I was blown. You know, all that I had read till then of the entire Western canon that we had been taught, it just fell away for me for some time, for some days.
My God.
You know, because here was storytelling of a different kind about different people, different characters that I hadn't read earlier in the books that I was reading.
Hmm.
Okay, even if you take up Lorca, even if you take up Dostoevsky,
Hmm.
this was hard hitting on a different level altogether. And the way she uses the different registers in Bengali, the clash of the languages is the area of conflict. It
Correct.
was at 20, you can imagine how it hit me, you know. And my gaze got directed forever, I think.
Wow.
Whatever I may have learned from other writers about writing, my gaze got directed. And it is uh, that hunger that brings me back. Not so
Hmm.
much the written word, but the people about whom I want to write, the things I want to write about.
How beautiful. How beautiful. And if you could advise one truth to younger writers listening now, what would that be?
Be true to your voice. I had a session some days ago with some writers, and you know they were asking me this, that
Hmm.
so and so writes in this manner, or you know that writer writes like this, or that literary critic says this about writing, and I don't know how to write like that. I said, you don't have to write like that.
Hmm.
You will write the way you want to write,
Hmm.
and you see to it that you're doing the best possible you can with that writing voice.
Hmm.
So it's essential that you find your writing voice and you stay true to it, rather than try to, you know, copy what somebody else is doing, or what somebody else tells you is the way to do things.
Yeah.
So once you know you're sure of that, then you can, you know, mold it in various ways. I'm not saying
Right.
you become monotonous.
Of course.
What I'm
Yeah.
saying is you be true, because nobody can replace that.
Yeah. This has been such a fascinating conversation. It's gone way beyond what I thought it would. Thank you so much,
What's the
Sucharita. I think
time? Okay.
it's it's been one long conversation. It's so fascinating. Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for your candor and the honesty of all your answers. It's been so fascinating. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you,
So,
Sunil. Thank you for doing this.
of course, always my pleasure.
Thank you for asking these questions that matter so much.
They always do. Thank you.
Thank
Listening to Sucharita, you realize that writing isn't just an act of imagination, it's also an act of faith. Faith that stories matter, faith that silence has texture, and faith that even the smallest story can grow roots deep enough to hold the world steady for a moment. Her work reminds us that the real revolutions in literature are often quiet ones, written in the margins, edited late at night, published with courage rather than capital. I'm Sunil, and you've been listening to Sculpting Stories Growing Roots, part of Red River Sessions presented by Uncut Poetry. You can find books published by Red River online at redriverpress.in, on Amazon, and in select bookstores. And Uncut Poetry is the immensely popular poetry podcast of original poetry. You can hear Uncut Poetry on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, YouTube, Ghana, or anywhere you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, talk about it, write about it, share it. If this conversation moved you, do share it, rate it, or simply tell someone about a story that stayed with you. Because that's how stories live on, passed hand to hand, heart to heart. And subscribe to Red River Sessions so you never miss an episode. See you soon.